So yesterday we ranked the best position groups on the offensive side of the ball. And honestly, while it is nice to just see how much depth and how deep that offense is at almost every position group, it was fairly predictable what teams are going to be ranked where. What is less predictable and less sure overall is the Cleveland Browns defense. Now, don't get me wrong. They've done a lot, and I mean a lot, to overhaul this defense so it's much better than it was last year. But there are still a lot of question marks on this defense that I'm eager to see how they play out. But that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to be ranking the defense. We're going to go position group by position group and see which one is the strength of the defense. But before I get into that, I want to make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, ding that notification bell so you can be notified when I upload a ton of content coming out in the off season, regular season, preseason, training camp, whatever season it is you prefer. I have videos out for it. So make sure you check that out. Also, I want to give a shout out to the patreon.com dog check tier members. And I'm going to start with Fred Pratt III, David Vautier, Relentless Buck, Chunt, Rex Kaufman, The Real Quincy Carrier, Kevin Johnson, Marino V, Cleveland Cart, Matt H, Sign Sheets, Gemini, Fight Dirty 74, Yo-Yo, Matt Lloyd, Paul Wilcox, Hundo Magnifico, Rob Ferron, Kyle Stouffer, Lukey from Munich, Dave Roth, J Guy 101, Joe Bobby, Brad Cowbo, Dylan W, James McGinley, Arenda Hall, Chad Gimme, David Maldonado, Dylan Hale, Josh Bendor, Mark M, TJ Showman, Stuart Moore, Cleveland BCI, Robert Jermaine Jr., Dave Mike May, John Cummings, Andrew Hirsch, Curtis Bear, Brock Kumar, John Albert, Masayua, Buds Roland, James Nemo, Mac House, Reeve Hertz, Philip Wilcoxon, Marie Vivert, Sean Barron, Goggles Pisano, Corporal Nick Lopez, Dom Gazzulo, Nick Nasty, Ian Whitaker, Colin 216, Anthony Latham, Christian, Dave Strong, Matt Stone, Charles Work, Billy Moose Gentry, Mark Burnett II, Andre Griffin, Otis Wolf, Dog Pound Kai, Greg Ehlers, Austin Bolin, Kirkabar, Easley Badge, Joe Hart, Gabriel Wilson, Max Nilikinko, Lydia Mahawk, Jesus Serrano, Chris Phones, Picktown Browns backers, Mark Kahn, Max Owl Dojo, and Water Bear Marketing. Again, guys, thank you so much for your support. It means a ton. Now let's talk about the defense. So the defense is a much different situation to the offense, right? The offense, we kind of have a really good idea of who's going to be able to contribute what they're going to bring, and what their role is going to be on the offense. This is pretty much them returning the entire offense from last year, and they just added like one or two pieces to that. The defense, on the other hand, is completely new. I mean, you have Denzel Ward returning, you got Myles Garrett returning, you got Malcolm Smith returning, and nobody else really, Ronnie Harrison as well. So you probably got like 4 of the 11 starters on defense are returning, and then it's kind of a free-for-all out there with everybody else. Now, they made those upgrades, and they are definitely upgrades. It's a more uncertain side of the ball. You're relying on more rookies, more guys that you haven't really seen a ton of, and there's just a ton of turnover. And I think the most egregious example, if you want to say that, of the turnover on this defense is actually the defensive tackle room, which I think is probably the worst position group on the team. Definitely the worst position group on the defense. And this is no disrespect to them. I don't think it's a terrible room. Like, you have some decent players here. It's just you have the least proven players in this room. You have Malik Jackson, who was 62nd of 126 defensive tackles last year. Andrew Billings, who did not play last year, he opted out, obviously. And, when he did play in 2019, he had a decent PFF grade. And then Jordan Elliott, who had a rough rookie year. And let's be honest here, they're going to be looking to Tommy Togiai to have some production. Whoever wins the extra roster spot, they're going to definitely be looked at to contribute, because you lost Sheldon Richardson, you released him, and then Larry Ogunjobi is no longer on the team. So there isn't a lot of known quantity on this defensive line. The only thing that's kind of a known quantity is Malik Jackson. Everything else is a huge question mark, especially Andrew Billings, especially Jordan Elliott, especially all the rookies that you're going to be asking to play. All that alone, it's why it's probably the weakest position group on the Cleveland Browns right now. Now, this can be mitigated with a couple of things. One, they put Myles inside a lot. They're probably going to put Jadeveon inside a decent amount. So it's not just going to be that they're throwing the defensive tackles out there and leaving them alone there. I think they're going to do a lot of things to mitigate the weakness on this part of the defense, but also if you just look at the room alone, it's clearly the least proven and most questionable position group of all the defense. So that's why they're number 5 for me. The next group I'm going to talk about is the linebacking group. Now, this group has a lot of unknowns, but more known than the defensive tackles, right? The only unknown you're adding in here is JOK and Tony Fields as well. But you do have some decent known quantities on this defense. You look at Malcolm Smith, you look at Sione Takitaki, you know what you can get out of them. Anthony Walker is somebody who doesn't put up great PFF grades, but he's somebody who could be a reliable, steady hand, similar to a BJ Goodson. And then after that, you have question marks, and then you have hopefulness, right? And I think that's why I gave the linebackers the nod over the defensive tackles. One, I really, really believe in JOK. I think he has Darius Leonard-like potential, and I don't think there's anybody in the defensive tackle room that has that level of potential. Also, I think you have more solid linebackers. I think you have 3 solid linebackers that you know about coming into the season versus the defensive tackle room where we only really know about one guy there. So I think that's ultimately why I gave them the nod. And similar to the defensive tackle room, I really don't expect the Browns to come out here and not mitigate the linebacking room. I think you're probably going to see most of the time 2 linebackers on the field, maybe JOK, Malcolm Smith, or JOK, Anthony Walker. I think you're going to see a rotation of 2 linebackers for the most part on defense. I don't think they're going to throw a ton of linebackers out there. So again, not a great position group, not a great room, but ways to mitigate it when it comes to scheming that are going to be interesting. What I will say is that you have a nice combination here of linebackers, especially with the rotation you can have with a Malcolm Smith and a Sione Takitaki, because they're both similarly graded players. Like literally they ranked similarly, but they're compatible because Malcolm Smith, pass guy, Sione Takitaki, run guy. So you have a nice rotation there and a real use for Takitaki and Malcolm Smith. And then you can add in JOK. Then you can sprinkle in a little bit of Anthony Walker. But I really like what you can do in small doses with this linebacking room. They're number 4. They have some potential. There's guys like Jacob Phillips and Mac Wilson who have a ton to prove this offseason. But other than that, I feel pretty good about what they can do with that linebacking room. All right, so number 3, the third best position group on this defense is going to be the defensive backs. Now, this is a upgrade from last year because last year they weren't a great position group at all. You have Denzel Ward, who, again, consistency is an issue with him, but when he's healthy, he is extremely good. It's just the consistency there. You want him to play more games. You want him to play in those games more consistently, and you want him to be who Denzel Ward has the potential to be. Then you have somebody like a Troy Hill who is more consistent, more versatile, inside, outside guy. I think he's going to be a strong addition because if you have issues on the opposite side of Denzel Ward with Greedy or Greg Newsome, you can put Troy Hill there. If you have issues on the interior, you can put Troy Hill there. I think Troy Hill is going to be a real important signing this year, and I think we're going to really appreciate that throughout the year. And then after that, we got question. Greg Newsome is a rookie. We don't know exactly what we're going to get from him from a play standpoint. We have high hopes, but we don't know at this point, right? He's a question mark. Greedy Williams, look, he's a massive question mark at this point. Even when he was on the field in 2019, the numbers weren't great. The grades weren't great. And again, PFF grades, especially for defensive backs, you have to take them with a grain of salt because it's one of those really hard position groups to give a solid grade to. If you watch Greedy in 2019 and when we were talking about the Browns in 2019, Greedy's inconsistency was brought up often. So, it wasn't like he was this shutdown corner when he was healthy and he just hasn't been healthy. It's been that he hasn't really developed yet, hasn't had the opportunity to develop because he's never healthy to play games. And we don't know where he's going to be at. Like how much further ahead could Greedy Williams be than a rookie when he's been injured so much in his career? And that's going to be a big question mark for him. You got MJ Stewart, who, he's a special teams guy, Robert Jackson, who's hoping to make the team. It's not the deepest group, but you have a good amount of DBs out here, a good amount of flexibility and a good amount of versatility to really get you somewhere. I like this group, and in all honesty here, right, if Denzel Ward is out there, if Troy Hill is out there, and if Greg Newsome is out there, I feel like those are three really solid starters you can throw out there in some packages, and you'll be more than fine on defense. So that's the defensive back room. They're number 3. Now we're going to talk about the number 2 position group on the defense, and that's going to be defensive end. I know a lot of you guys had this pegged to be number 1. I think this is number 2. Now, I want to stress, this is a really, really solid defensive end room. I would have loved if they, were more aggressive in the draft about bringing in a younger pass rusher. They didn't do that, and they have 2 guys on 1-year deals here, and I think Porter Gustin's deal's up. So the only guy under contract after this year is going to be Myles Garrett. So it's not really built well for the future. But for this year, I think it's good enough. Obviously, you have Myles Garrett, you have Jadeveon Clowney, and even, the supplementary guys, Porter Gustin and Tack McKinley, they put out decent work in the past to where you can feel good about them being able to produce, especially in a backup capacity. I like this room. Look, the versatility in this room is crazy. Honestly, we're looking at these 4 guys. There's times where you could probably see all 4 of these guys on the field because 2 of them can play all the positions on the defensive line, Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney. So the versatility in this room is insane. The ceiling of this room is insane, right? When you talk about what Myles can do and when you talk about what Jadeveon can do if they reach their potential, it's insane. And also Tack McKinley, he shouldn't be left out of any potential conversation. That's all really good. And then I like Porter Gustin there as a nice utility guy. But all in all, it's a solid group, a solid rotation. It would usually be number 1, but I think the Browns really outdid themselves this offseason and really upgraded another position group to the point where I think they're going to be the strength of the defense. And that position group is the safeties. Now, again, we're more than welcome to take PFF grades with a grain of salt, especially for DBs. But if you look at them, they are pretty good for this safety group. John Johnson was the 3rd-ranked safety in the NFL last year, and then Ronnie Harrison was the 9th. And then you're returning a 2nd-round pick, a guy that people thought would be the best safety in the draft last year, and Grant Delpit from injury, and he looks like he's going to be ready to go. So all of that, right, knowing that this is the only position group on the defense where you have 2 guys who you can argue were top 10 starters in their position. I gave the defensive ends praise for versatility. The versatility with these 3 guys, when we're talking about Grant Delpit, John Johnson, and Ronnie Harrison, not so much Cedric Redwine. The versatility is insane, right? These are all 3 guys who, you don't want to put Grant at linebacker a lot, but you can live with Grant at linebacker. But you definitely can put Ronnie Harrison and John Johnson at linebacker. You can use them flexibly, interchangeably. I think there's a lot of potential with the safety room, and I think a lot of what the Browns defense is going to be successful with, or what they hope to be successful with this season. And if they do make that step into being, a top caliber defense, is going to be based around what they're able to do at the safety position. I think it's going to make everything else more productive and everything else possible. So that's why they are the number 1 strength of the defense as of right now. But that's just my thoughts on it. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.